everybody to episode 1 of Under Broadcast. My name is AJ Bubb. I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Convia Studio. We'll get into that later. But today we want to focus on the purpose of Under Broadcast, which is to help people to get their message out, to become more comfortable with basically putting themselves out there, telling their story, and using content to get ahead. Our guest today, Raymond, we're going to talk about how to stay authentic in the world of AI and how to stay visible in the world with AI, including on LinkedIn. So Michelle, I'll let you do an intro to yourself first, and then we'll get into it.
Hello and congratulations on getting started. I am 200 plus episodes into my podcast, and I remember what the first episode was like. It was the hardest one to get started. So well done you, and I'm sure it's just going to be amazing the more that this continues to grow. So I'm Michelle J. Raymond. If you can't tell by my accent, I'm an Aussie down here in Sydney. So I strategize with businesses on how to use LinkedIn to grow. And so I've been doing that for around 10 or 11 years now. And boy, have things changed, especially AJ over the last 12 months. Like, yes. I feel like I'm on a foreign planet right now.
I 100% agree. I feel like I came in to LinkedIn too late. And now it's just this insane uphill battle to try to get attention on it. And things keep changing. And yeah, why don't we take a step back, because we're going to get into a lot of the LinkedIn stuff. Content. Why does it matter? Why should people care? I am sure so many people are sick and tired of going on their LinkedIn feed or, any feed and just seeing this self-promotion thing. So why don't we just start this content 2026? Does it still matter? Why should people care?
Does it still matter? Yes. Do I think we should put as much importance on it as we have done for the last 10 or 11 years? Maybe not. I'm not sure that the same return on your effort comes now in 2026 as what it did when I started. And to be clear, I love creating content, and I especially loved it when I had no idea what I was doing back in the beginning. I think the longer time goes on, the higher the standard I set for myself, and perfectionism tends to kick in more often. And I'm like, no, you know better than this. So I think we have people at all ends of the scale, people that probably know that they should be, but they're not. People that are like me, they've been doing it for a long time, that are questioning, where is this all going right about now? And obviously the platforms change and evolve over time, and it doesn't matter which one you're on. They all kind of seem to be shifting down the same path where it's around topics and not people and connections and networking and and that's the thing that I really loved. Building a community is my favorite part about being on social. Like, it's the social out of social media, and content was my way of attracting that right audience, having conversations with people that ultimately for me, I'm trying to grow my business. And so from that perspective, I've always loved it. These days, it's harder to get that same content seen. LinkedIn's just gone over 1.3 billion plus members. So their feed is crowded. They're doing some things to try and fix that. But at the end of the day, if you're just starting out, I don't know, if you don't know any better and it's always been like this, maybe you won't notice. And maybe that's a blessing. It'll just be how it is. But for me, it just feels like night and day. And so I'll freely admit it's a struggle some days to go, what is going on here? And I train people for a living. So it's an interesting time to be on the platform for sure.
So that's interesting. There's a couple things I want to break down for that. Let's start with you said people out there that know that they should be making content. Let's start with that. Why should they be, and what should they be doing when they think about content?
Look, I think the reason that they should be out there is because right now every search that's going on to try and find a solution for a business problem normally happens online, whether it happens via a Google search, whether it's happening via AI, whether it's happening via social media platforms. Like, a lot of people do their research looking for opinions of others that have already maybe tried the products or services. And that happens in B2B just as much as B2C. And so if your business isn't online and you aren't out there giving people a reason to choose you with your content, because that's our vehicle for getting that attention, then unfortunately, if your competitors are doing it, and there's so much research basically that says if someone else is out there doing a good enough job, they are going to win the business more often than you trying to be perfect and be the best no matter how good you are. And so being invisible in an online world, it's, just craziness. And so that's the piece of the puzzle that people are trying to reconcile right now, is that maybe you have your own personal opinions about social media and you don't like it, you don't want to be on it, you think it's oversharing, or people are just, high-fiving themselves on LinkedIn and it's a bit cringe. I get all of that. And you also need to be on there. I don't care about your personal opinions, because your competitors will own the space. And let me tell you this, if you give them a head start, unless you have a ginormous budget that you can throw resourcing and ads and everything behind it, you'll never catch them. So don't be the person that's sitting there just going, well, I don't like it, I don't care. LinkedIn's the platform where business is done. If your business isn't there, you're going to be missing out on opportunities.
Yeah, and earlier when we were talking, I said I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. The love side of it is, since I've been doing more and more outreach on it and connecting one-on-one with people, I really enjoy rekindling. I've met some great people on it. Like, there's actually faces behind the feed. Oh man, that's a good show name.
There's a podcast name. Like, quick, let's go back and re-record.
Okay,
behind the feed.
Yeah. But there's great things on it, but it seems like it's masked more and more, right? It's almost like it's not about the people anymore. Something you mentioned was it's less about community, more about topic. Can you explain that a little bit, and then explain what that transition has looked like over the past 10 years that you've been doing? What was it like back in the day, back in our day?
Yeah, back in the day, as someone that, turns 50 later this year, I think I've earned the right to say that. I'm excited to be able to say that. But ultimately what's happened is it was commonly known as a professional networking platform. It was like an online trade show. These are the kinds of analogies that we would use to describe LinkedIn. It was all about finding your people within your industry, getting them to connect and nurturing those relationships. And that's where I fell in love with it. I first got started as an account manager in a sales-based role. And so for me, it was like heaven on earth. Everybody was online. I could reach out and connect with them. Back then, they would say yes every single time, pretty much. You got such a high acceptance rate. There was no limits or restrictions on how many people you could connect with. So off we went connecting, and It was just amazing. And you could ask some of the best, subject matter experts around the world any question. They gladly answer. Referrals were a thing. And so that was great. And again, we probably had half the number of people on the platform. We certainly had no automation tools. Engagement pods were around, so that's where people game the system, but maybe not as prevalent now that tech makes it so easy. And so as we've gone on, and LinkedIn itself around 12 months ago also changed. And so with the large language models and AI and all the fun stuff that's happened in the world, they use that to customize your experience on LinkedIn. What they have decided is that maybe this isn't the world's biggest, professional networking event. This is where people are now going to be grouped by topics. And if you think about it, so I talk about LinkedIn, I talk about B2B marketing, I talk about LinkedIn company pages. And so from that perspective, what it wants me to do is get me out of my bubble, or my echo chamber as it turns into if you stay in it for too long, and get me connected to people outside of my network. And on the surface, I see how that logic works, and I can kind of think that that's a good thing. I want new people to discover me, and I want them to discover me for my expertise. But the reality of what's going on right now is my content is being shown to people who do exactly what I do. So all of the other LinkedIn trainers in the world, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. And the downside is all my friends, my LinkedIn friends who I've known for the best part of 6 years while I've been setting up my business, who I met when, I set my business up in 2020. So we were all online. It was the best thing ever. And so now they've all disappeared. And I've now got these randoms, all my competitors showing up. And I'm going, hang on, LinkedIn. What is going on here?
Yeah.
You're killing me.
Yeah. That bothers me so much that the people that I've known, that when I write a post and I want them to see it, they don't see it at all. Like, there's just nothing there. It's almost like we're not getting discovered by the network outside the group, and we're not getting discovered by our own network anymore. I can understand why anybody who's walking into this says this is overwhelming and I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, so hot off the press, because every creator and their dog is currently over in Cannes. It's the place to be if you're a creator right now. So there's some new features kind of being launched, and LinkedIn's using this as the chance to do it. And I was reading just this morning, like literally about an hour ago, a post that they're also introducing a new feed, and it's going to be by topic. So I think you can nominate maybe 4 or 5 topics. And on this separate feed, so not the normal home feed when you log on, this will be a second one where you can actually follow those topics that you nominate, from what I can understand. Now, this is something that around 2 years ago, LinkedIn had this idea about the discovery feed, and it was going to highlight LinkedIn live events, LinkedIn newsletters, and other things along those lines. And I was all for it because I wanted my feed where I could see my friends, and then I wanted to learn things. Like, my favorite part about LinkedIn used to be that you could learn from subject matter experts. These days, I feel like I'm filtering out a lot more. Now, I don't mean to sound negative. It's just we're at the beginning of something different, and it's a significant change. The problem that a lot of people that have been creating for a long time and putting content out there on the platform, what's happening is, once upon a time, my post would have been 2,500 to 3,000 impressions. That's the number of times that eyeballs were shown my content. I would pat myself on the back if it went higher, but it was pretty consistent for a long period of time. Over the last 12 months, that number now probably looks like half of that on most days. And of course, sometimes things take off, but for the most part, because I'm not trying to go viral and I'm not using engagement hacks and doing all that, I'm just kind of plodding along doing my thing. Then what's happening is those numbers now are, like half of that. So if it says 1,500 impressions for the same amount of work, my growth of my followers has gone up significantly in the time. So I'm at around 30,000 followers. And so from that perspective, I now feel like what I'm doing, the return on that is not as much. Now, LinkedIn would say to us, okay, sure, you're putting your content out there, but Michelle, previously, that 2,500, 3,500 wasn't a real number. We were just showing it to anyone and everyone. Now we're trying to show it to a more relevant audience. And I get you, LinkedIn, I'm listening to you, but my ego, it's not coping with that. Even though I would teach my clients, hey, impressions aren't the be all and end all, and we've got all these other metrics and analytics. The fact is, it feels different. And I think that's the struggle that a lot of content creators are having.
Yeah, I guess the question to ask is, are you finding that the people who are viewing your content more relevant?
If I'm answering honestly, I don't think so just yet. I don't think I've found my new group of people. So I've got my old friends, and I need to make some new LinkedIn friends, if that makes sense, and build my community. I think it's going to take some time. I think the LLMs that operate behind LinkedIn systems, they literally adapt within minutes based on your activities. So it looks at everything holistically. So think your LinkedIn profile, whatever it says about you and what you like and what you're interested in and who you're trying to connect with, it's using that information. It's using your interactions that you do in the home feed. So what you're liking, what you're stopping for, what you're commenting on. It's looking at who you're sending direct messages to. It's looking at your company page and then deciding what you want to see. So in some ways, it's up to us to kind of go back and refine all of those things and say, actually, there's no clarity in my LinkedIn profile right now because I haven't updated it for so long. It's, where I am at now, say for you, AJ, maybe where you're at now versus what you're growing with Convia, like maybe you haven't gone back and updated your profile. So it's kind of trying to match you with the wrong audience to where you want to go now. And so some of it's on us, and you can kind of train the dragon by your activity. So it's up to you. But yeah, it's kind of funny. If you go off track and accidentally look at something, you'll end up going down a rabbit hole going, hang on a minute, like how did we end up here? Like, so my feed the last 24 hours has been nothing but people whose dads have died over Father's Day, pets that have passed away, and also colleagues that have passed away. I'm like, is this the obituary feed right now? Because I don't know what I clicked on, but like, where the hell have all the B2B marketers gone? Like, can we talk about that again? But yeah, it's really powerful, but also you just got to be careful how you drive it and what direction you push it in.
So this is interesting because everybody's feed is being curated right now, and the algorithm is pushing not only what people see, but it's also influencing what they care about. So let's go back to the person who is looking to start with content, right? And content itself is pretty broad of a term. So the business that is trying to be more competitive, or the individual that's trying to be more competitive. Because I think what we're seeing, it's not even what we're seeing now is people are being displaced, whether it's because of AI, because of, bad strategy, whatever it is, it's becoming more competitive, it's becoming harder to stand out. So they're sitting in front of the gate saying, I need to get in on the game, right? How do they even get started, and what should be important to them? I think that's an even better question is, if impressions aren't the thing, why are they doing it?
Yeah, and keep in mind that there are so many stats on LinkedIn and online communities in general that show us that only probably like max 3 to 5%, and I'm kind of expanding that. Typically, people would say around 1% of people are actually posting content and being active on these platforms consistently. So what we would term a creator is somebody that is just consistently putting stuff out there, commenting, and really just being active on the platforms. That leaves the other, let's call it 95%, sitting on the sideline. So that is the majority of people that are just sitting there just going, you guys do it all, no way I'm ever doing it. Like, because most are actually freaked out and scared of the platform. I don't care whether you're starting out and just left college. I don't care whether you're at the end of your career and have been an industry leader and everywhere in between. Doesn't matter about age, doesn't matter about sex, doesn't matter about what industry. People are petrified. Why? Because if you're not paid to do it, why would you put yourself out there and risk your career? Because that's what it feels like. I don't want other people to judge me. I don't, maybe English is a second language. So I don't want to type things and put it out there in case it sounds funny. I have seen people that don't know or don't want to admit they don't really know how to use social media. They were never taught, and that can be an age-related thing. I've got people that are like, LinkedIn's cringe. Like, I'm hanging out over on Instagram where, I enjoy it and will never participate in LinkedIn. So fear stops most people. Why would you go past that fear? Well, you've got to find something that's bigger than you. And I know Simon Sinek, it's a bit of a cliche to start with why, but like it really is something that I think most people should do. What do you want to get out of your time on LinkedIn? Who is it that you're trying to connect to? And I call, when I'm training people, it's the game plan. Like, if you don't have a game plan and you just log on, you'll sit there and stare at a screen and maybe scroll for a little while and then give up, because honestly, when you scroll the highlights reel and everybody looks like they've got it sorted, that is so bad for your confidence. You'll just run the other way anyway. So the most important lesson that I can give people is just be you. I say create your digital twin, long before it was the cool thing to say, but showing up as you in your own way is the biggest advantage that you can have in an AI world. While everyone else is trying to do polished and perfect and just, using these tools to just make themselves sound like everybody else at the end of the day, if you just remain true to yourself, it's much easier to do, much less exhausting, that's for sure, and much more enjoyable. And I think if it's enjoyable, you can do it for a long time. That's why I've been doing it for 11 years. If you try and do things and be a LinkedIn version of yourself, you'll hate it and give up. I give you 3 weeks max. And so that's what I'm out to try and help people to do, is find a way that they can do this sustainably over the long term.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. So I've been posting, and I go in waves as well. It's like, okay, let's focus on LinkedIn. I get distracted. Content has always been something that I would start and it would lead to something, and then that something would take up my whole life. So that something is usually I sold a big engagement or started a new company or whatever it is, and then I'd let the content go. But to your point, that being authentic, during CES this year, I was live posting pictures of myself and just random hot takes that I had, because I have a lot of hot takes. And I went from, what would be like maybe 1,000, 2,000 impressions to 100,000 on one post, because I said that, engineering is dead with vibe coding, and here's a picture of me and the robot and all this stuff, and it clicked, right? And that felt great. And then that led to a lot of really good conversations, and then I was too busy to post on it again, right? But the authenticity I really find as, if somebody's going to say, well, what do I put out there? Because you mentioned AI a bunch of times, and we have AI writing posts. We have LLMs on LinkedIn side reading the post, then categorizing them. It's like, why do you even need a human there? So what is the human differentiator that they're bringing?
Personality, experience, points of view. Your post took off because you had a point of view that maybe was a bit contrarian or a bit confronting to some people, and everybody's got a strong opinion on it. So, enragement gets engagement is what I say when it comes to LinkedIn. And that's the case. Does it mean you're going to do it every time? No, of course not. But, some people do, and that works for them. But for most of us, it's just going to be a strong opinion from time to time based on your experience, based on what you're seeing. Your lived experiences are far more valuable in today's world than anything else. And that's the thing that no one else can replicate. Like, there is only one AJ in this world, and there's only one Michelle. And so the more I lean into my view of the world and what my experiences taught me, and not the cliched kind of stuff that LLMs create, the more I can talk about that. And I mean, people use the word storytelling a lot. It's never resonated with me because it sounds so manufactured. But the idea behind it is share your own stuff at the end of the day. Like, share your own opinions. And that I'm totally on board for. So from that perspective, I just think that I say it and kind of say it like it's so easy to do, right, AG? But I just want your listeners to know it's not the easiest thing to do, because you are going to sit down, especially if you're just getting started, and your brain is going to do everything it can to protect you and talk you out of it. And you will go back and you'll go, hey, AI tool, can you polish this? How can I make it sound better? Blah, 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 blah. And it'll come out and it'll almost look picture perfect. And it's kind of like the Stepford Wives. Picture perfect, but behind the scenes, let's find out what's really going on. And so the main problem is you then just become average, right? And by saying to you, just be yourself, it is the most powerful lesson that I can give you, but one that I will always struggle with to some degree every day that I create, because it's just a system that's been set up to compare ourselves to everyone else. And, that's social media in general. And so I have a bit of a love-hate thing with it on that perspective, because sometimes the numbers drive the wrong behaviors. And there's no little fact checking. There's nothing on there that says, hey, you just said this. That is absolute BS. There is no way that you have done that. Like, sure, you're sitting in your jet, 21 years old, really living at home with your, parents and and so from that perspective, you only see things that look amazing and perfect and nothing ever fails. And yeah, that's certainly not a place that is inspiring to a lot of people to put themselves out there for the first time. So just know that that's the case, but you should find a reason bigger than you. So for me, it's about serving other people. I love helping people. I love helping people, get their business to grow. Right now, I teach them how to do it on LinkedIn. My entire career was doing that in, sales-based roles. So find your thing and why it matters. And to me, I always hold on to what's the difference before and after working with me. And I know the difference I make. And this is just one way of finding more people that I can help. And if you always remember that content is there to serve your audience and help them get closer to their goals, that feels different and it's much easier to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the way you just put that it's there to help them get closer to their goals, because it goes into that old network. I'm going to call it old because I don't really agree with it, but the networking strategy, you have to provide value before you ask, right? Content, I feel that content is a way of providing value, right? Yeah. So producing it is something that is out there that you can share, and that experience thing is so important. Like, one of the things that I think about is if we look over the last 10, 20 years, we went from information economy where information was scarce and valuable to a content economy where attention was scarce and valuable. And now I kind of feel like we're in an authority economy, right? It's what have you done? What is your experience? And how many people can you reach and share that with, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that knowledge is everywhere and available at your fingertips on so many different platforms now. But I also think that there's a space for people that show up that are just humans, that are relatable and that you can build rapport with. So there are people that I just like their content because they're good humans, or they make me laugh, or they've got an interesting point of view. And you'll see that a lot of those people that I'm going to call them probably oversharers compared to where I am comfortable sharing. Like, if I was at a different stage of life, different goals, different things that I was trying to do, I might be that line might have moved. But you'll find quite often the people that share the most personal stuff are the ones that are most relatable, that get the most engagement. And that line is in a different place for everybody. Some people will be what I call the overshare end, and some people will be, I'm never saying anything personal. This isn't Facebook gang. And all of it is fine and perfect. And with 1.3 billion members on the platform, you are not going to get, a consensus across that whole number about what it should be like. The biggest impact right now is that LinkedIn specifically is 70% Gen Z. So if you think about that, how they use social media is what's going to be driving some of these platforms. And so some of us, like me, who are Gen X, that is going to be a little off-putting, especially when we've used it for a while. But the world is changing, like you said, and where we go from information is now just a commodity. What is the thing that makes you different? And again, it comes back to you being you.
Yeah, so how do you then combine being your authentic self with the demands of keeping up with the almost brute force of producing content? Like, there's a level of you need to keep showing up and being there, otherwise the algorithm puts you to the side.
Yeah, so I don't care about the algorithm. Like, I gave up worrying about that a long time. When I first set up my business in 2020, I was obsessed with it. I thought I needed to know everything. And then I realized I was focusing on the right thing. If you put more effort into customer research and understanding your customer and serving them with your content, the algorithm takes care of itself, because the people will find it valuable and they'll engage and they'll comment and do all the things that the algorithm loves. So I was very heavily focused on the wrong thing. And so right now I go the other way. Customer research is all it. The interesting part about today's world is that there are so many tools to help you create content that make it faster, that in some ways that productivity level is amazing, and the gains that I've got in my business from some of the new tools that are out there are amazing, and they save us so much time and allow myself and my partner Lil, who's in the business, she can do a whole bunch of stuff now that as someone who's not a video editor, hates social media, she can take care of it because the tools can do that kind of stuff. So there's the upside. The downside is it also, so much stuff becomes commoditized, all looks the same, sounds the same. And so we all blend in together, which is the complete and utter opposite of what we're trying to achieve. So again, I feel like we're in an interesting point of time where we have tools and they're amazing and we're trying to figure out how to use them. At the same time, not wanting to use them in some ways because the good old days. And so it's kind of interesting. So for me personally, how I dealt with this, I diversified the kinds of content that I do. So once upon a time, I would have been on LinkedIn posting 7 days a week. I loved it. But then I realized every post that I did and all that effort and love that I put into it just went down the home feed, like kind of being flushed down the toilet. And never to be seen again. And all that great work just really never appeared again, you know, like, so it was a lot of effort for a very short kind of reward period. So then I moved on to creating things like, for instance, I went, I could put things on YouTube. If I create a video, I can put it over there. It has a longer shelf life, you know, and that's why I went over that way. It was more searchable and had a longer shelf life. Then I moved into podcasting. And so for me now, between my newsletters, my YouTube, and my podcast and LinkedIn, like obviously that's where my little network is. And the danger for people starting out is you'll hear someone say you've got to be on every platform. Do not listen to Gary Vee, who says put out 55 billion pieces of content every day or you're going to die. You're not. Like, I am living proof that that is not what's going to happen. He has a team of like, you know, probably 50 people creating content, an army of people who clip his content. Like, we are not trying to model on people like Gary Vee. Like, I enjoy some of his content, but it's not where someone should start. And so pick one platform, pick one style of content. If you hate video, don't do video. If you are not a graphic designer, don't waste time in Canva trying to sort that out. Just write some text and don't worry about, is it too long, too short? What will the algorithm like? You know, like, should I use 50 million hashtags or no hashtags? This report says this, that report says that. And then all of a sudden people stop. Just write something that you read about, that you had an experience, and share that with people, because honestly, it's going to land better than any other manufactured piece of content that you could do.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to do now, or one of the ways that I treat content now, is it's more of a, this is what you see after I've met you in person, right? I have gone and I have started doing way more in-person networking events, conferences, things like that. And then when they say, okay, so who's this AJ guy? You can go and Google search me and you'll see the content. So it's almost like a shift. And I don't know if you're seeing the same thing or if I'm just crazy, where instead of trying to lead with the content and get the algorithm and all that stuff, it's just like, no, here's a repertoire of my experience, of my learnings, the conversations that I've had. And after I've met you, you can go see who's this guy.
Yeah, and it's about how do you nurture relationships. And I think content's one piece of the puzzle that gets so much attention, but I think the real value comes from finding new people, actually starting conversations with them, meeting them offline, and then maybe nurturing them online, because maybe the event that you went to is only on once a year. So what are you going to do to stay top of mind with them until the next time? And then you can catch up face to face. So how do you discover new people and start to have those conversations? And so I found that I was so heavy on content. I had lots of business coming in from podcast and all this kind of stuff, that I probably stopped doing what I should be doing more, which is nurturing those relationships in the background, actually proactively reaching out, not just trying to sell people stuff, because no one's into that. Like, they're getting spammed all day, every day with people on automation tools, doing things at bulk, and nobody's got time for that in their life. But starting actual real conversations where you think you could help someone, or you've seen something of value. And so I've tried to get back in more recently to having, hey, I've seen you in my feed. I appreciate you for liking and commenting on my content a lot. I don't really know who you are. Can we have a conversation? And whether that's 15 minutes or half an hour, that to me is really valuable. And I stopped doing that for a while because I put too much importance and, on the content side of things. And why? Because you can measure that, AJ, and it feels good if the numbers go up. And that's, again, what we've been trained to do on social media for a long time. But you have to break out of that. So I had to be okay with, I know, for instance, if I look at the analytics on my podcast, if I talk about LinkedIn company pages, which is my specialty, my numbers go down. If I talk about something more generic, like LinkedIn profiles or the LinkedIn algorithm, the numbers go crazy. So I can be drawn to going, well, I want the download numbers to go up. So I'm going to keep talking about that. When realistically, when I talk about the company pages, which is a lower number, but that's where my clients come from. And so untraining myself to move away from those numbers that I've been told are the right things to do is something that I'm struggling with. And I kind of wish I was starting out now because I wouldn't know any different. And so I could focus on the right things, or maybe it's the benefit of hindsight and the wisdom of experience. But maybe people that are listening can learn from this and just kind of realize that lower numbers when you're creating content, but with the right people, and this is where LinkedIn calls it relevance, is definitely the name of the game that we want to play.
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword, because at some point something has to keep you going, and it's great getting the likes. So, I think for people starting out, one of the challenges that I had is I knew not to look at subscriber count, so I wouldn't let that be enough already. Like, oh, my subscriber count is growing. Well, that's a vanity metric. So I would put myself down on something like, at some point, you just got to let yourself like any type of trend. Like, that's really what you're aiming for, right? Is the number trend line goes up. Yeah. And I like what you said about having the goal, and what you said about you have to proactively reach out. That's the other thing I really think of it. This is when I talk with people casually about SEO, and they want to redo their website and I'll hire an SEO person. I'm like, SEO, just like the way I look at content, is passive. It's not a lot of the internet is so noisy now. There's so much going on, but you might not get found, right? You're hoping to get in front of the people spending more money. And okay, tell me, I have a theory. You could tell me if it's true, that all of the big LinkedIn influencer teaching you how to be proficient in LinkedIn and all this stuff, are they not also paying for advertising?
No, they're going worse than that. And it's on every platform. So in general, unless someone's like a famous person. So let's exclude the famous people. So Snoop Dogg, he's on LinkedIn. Of course, he's going to get huge amount of attention, right? Like, and there's lots of actual famous people. Ryan Gosling's on there. We get why people are drawn to them. Then there's like a random person from a small country with maybe a population of 3 million that all of a sudden ends up the biggest influencer on LinkedIn and trainer, and he's so amazing and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, yeah, because you gamed the system. You're in engagement pods. And they'll say, no, I'm not in an engagement pod. For people who don't know what that is, it's essentially you pay to be part of a community where everybody decides that they will support each other, which sounds great in theory, right? Like, I love that idea, people supporting each other. I'm all for that. But it's literally people here, there, and everywhere that just do it just because. So you get fake comments, and the more comments that you get on LinkedIn posts, the more that the post takes off, or historically has been like that. It's not so much quite now because of this behavior. And then the more that you do that, then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. So then all of a sudden, oh, you always get 200 likes. So if someone's getting 200 likes every single post or more from the same people, typically from third world countries and all different industries, job titles, that you're like, what has this person got to do with it? It's typically someone gaming the system. And, it's something that I wish we could stamp out. It is across every social media platform. It's been there since the beginning of time. and I hate them. I hate them with a passion. And the problem then becomes is that new people on the platform, which I hope this podcast episode encourages people to get started, will look at those people and go, why do they always get 200 likes and I don't get any, or I might get one occasionally? What are they doing? What's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And that's why people get drawn to engagement pods, because it feels awful when you're starting out, AJ. Like, no one wants to be the loser that does a post and gets nobody's attention. Like, why would you put so much effort, your heart into it, like time, resources, and then get nothing? Meanwhile, you're scrolling and see people that are getting, hundreds and hundreds of likes every time. Now, I'll use the kind of disclaimer that, of course, it's not everybody, but pretty much if you scratch the surface, for most people that are offering services that are selling this stuff, they're in engagement pods, and it just makes me sad, but it is just a part of the platforms, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing for people hearing that is they're never going to admit to it. Right? No. It's always, I grew this without any advertising spend. Yeah. Because they spend on the engagement pod, right? There's always something there. So it's not a level playing field is the point that I want to get, is that, just doing the thing is not going to be enough if your goal is just more followers, more views. So it goes back to, what is your why and why are you doing it?
And I think it should have been about building relationships. The content gets so much attention because it's the visible part, but there are some people doing some cool stuff that don't post content that are very good at sending messages behind the scenes and nurturing relationships. You got to keep in mind, like, the whole world isn't on LinkedIn and worried about it. There are people, like, if I go back when I first started, I was within an industry. I used to sell raw materials and ingredients that go into beauty products. So as an account manager, I had an existing client base. There was about 80 customers spread around Australia with however many people worked in there. And I would go out and reach all of those and connect with them. And, I was known in the industry, and LinkedIn supplemented that. That was how I could stay top of mind when I couldn't be out there face to face because they were interstate or whatever. And so from that perspective, you've got to realize, in every industry, I don't care what industry people come from, there are people that are so well known that have built up their reputation that had nothing to do with LinkedIn or social media platforms, but they are known because they've been, nurturing relationships. They've been going to trade shows. They've been meeting people face to face. They may have, spoken at these events. They might have been out to visit customers. So who they are in industries, and they are not always the people who have the loudest voices on an online platform. And they're the kinds of people that would be amazing if we can take, industry leader, put them on the platform, show them how to share it in that way. But yeah, the people on LinkedIn aren't necessarily the best people at what they do, or the industry leading. There are some industries, like in the B2B space, which is business to business. Like, if I look back in my career, my manufacturing companies that I worked for were never worried about being in an online world until probably more recently. And I'm talking in the last 1 or 2 years. My company that I worked for, where I got started on LinkedIn, I was begging them 10 or 11 years ago, when I got started, hey, can we do more on this? They were just looking at me going, I don't know what you're going on about, Michelle. It's good for you. You go do it, but not us. It's been the last 2 years of that business, so 10 years later, they're now kind of going, oh yeah, maybe we should do some more. And I think, yeah, maybe you should. You could have been leading, but that's life, right? But we're kind of just still getting started in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Do you ever, so you do coaching, you help people with their LinkedIn strategies, B2B LinkedIn strategies. Do you ever come across somebody who says, okay, you're asking them what their why is, and they want to do all this content, they want to become well-known, and you uncover that the underlying reason is because they don't want to direct message someone? Is the advice to ever start direct messaging people and starting conversations? Worry about the content later.
Everyone, I get when people reach out, and often it can be a smaller business, like a consultant or something that's just gone out on their own. Often, if they've just taken a redundancy or some kind of package, or a severance package, and they're now going out on their own as a consultant, and they're desperate to get business. I was that person. I kind of had to quit on the spot, so I get what it was like. The problem is nothing on LinkedIn happens quickly. It is not one of those places where you feed in this and you get out that, and it's really that simple, because you've got to build trust. You've got to build those relationships. It's not to say you can't do it, but for most people, if you haven't spent your career in sales and don't have a marketing background or a social background, you're just a subject matter expert, and I don't mean to say just a subject matter expert, but that's your background, then coming on here and just doing that and expecting that you're just going to win immediately, like, is not the case. And if people want things urgently and some kind of way like that, I send them to Google Ads. I was like, LinkedIn's not the platform. If you need it urgently and need something where you just want to put money in and get something out, probably Google Ads is the closest thing that I could recommend for you, because it's at least, you know, you can do your targeting and show up under keywords, and whereas LinkedIn's going to take your time. And most people give up far too quickly, because we're talking, you know, imagine feeling like you're talking to yourself for 3 months, AJ, like posting, doing things, and you literally are getting nothing back. Like, who's going to keep pushing past that? Different when you work for someone else and you've still got an income coming in. But if you don't have an income coming in, I can tell you, you are getting increasingly desperate and questioning yourself and thinking, I'm rubbish as a subject matter expert because I can't make this work. And so anyone that's starting out, I think you do need some help these days. If it's something that you want to grow a business with, like, I don't think you can just come in and pick it up. Of course, you can post content. That's easy, right? What content should you be posting? How do you structure it so it talks to your ideal audience? How do you make it land so they feel like you're the right person? It's so much more complicated, you know, to stand out just because it's crowded. Like, not because I want to, you know, of course I have a vested interest. I help people with this every day. But the reality of the platform now, God, it's nowhere near what it was like when I started. It was so much fun back then. It was like everybody liked everyone. Now you send a DM and people are like, stop trying to sell me stuff. Like, you can't just connect with me and sell stuff. You know, the old pitch slap, you can't do that, you know, and it's like, well, okay, well, what do you do then? And so it's a bit trickier.
I will admit, because I'm all about being authentic and being truthful. So we started a cold outreach campaign on my LinkedIn. And I'm actually surprised at how receptive people are, especially to have a follow-up conversation where we get to talk, right? So even this whole, and I hate cold, I'm not that type of person. I mean, you know, even you and I met because I have some people who are helping me with outreach and identifying people who, you know, we should have on the podcast. And Honestly, I've met wonderful people. Like, you have to get used to the rejection. I had somebody curse at me. I had somebody said, like, don't ever talk to me again. And that wasn't even for a cold pitch. That was like, somebody asked me something, I responded, and they're like, I want to hear from you. I'm like, okay, you messaged me. You have to get thick skin, but after that, it's just so, there's great people out there.
Yeah, there
right?
absolutely
You just have to
is.
message.
Yeah, and I think the difference is you went in with a game plan and you were targeted. And the more that you can do the work up front around who are we trying to get to, what would they look like, what value can we add to these people? And if you go in, like I always say, like hands in the air, I come in peace. Like, you know, I've got the white flag up. And so I often say to people, look, my clients say, I'm, you know, I'll use your words, I'm the Tylenol to their LinkedIn headaches, right? And just, if you've got a headache, come and see me, you know where I am. Something fun, something easy. Or like you said, don't try and pretend it's for something other. If the actual goal is, we're looking to have conversations with people in this space, we've identified that you're that person, would you like to have a conversation? Then it's not the, I'm going to send you a fake compliment the first time. Oh, yes, here's, because everybody says don't connect and pitch. So what they do is they send 3 messages now of just rubbish to get to the actual, I just want to have a conversation or buy my stuff. And so people don't have time for that. We can see through it. And I think just that honesty and transparency in the the way that you message people and just say, look, this is what I want. Like, and you can choose on your side to ignore me. You can reject it. You can block me. You can do whatever. And like you said, there will be a percentage of people that you just happen to land on the 20th time someone's tried to say something, they've had enough that day. You know, it's just like everybody back, or something's going on in their life that has nothing to do with LinkedIn at all. Geez, shock horror. You know, you don't know what's going on for people. So from that perspective, I just say, it is part of what we've got to do, but go direct, because if you're relying on algorithms to connect all the dots based on information you can't necessarily feed it, then it will never understand your business goals or where you're at right now. And that's obviously changing in your case. It's, a new startup that you're building, like you're going to be learning things so quickly that I don't think you can keep up. So, take the reins, so to speak.
My LinkedIn has no idea what to do with me. Multiple time startup, different podcasts, AI strategy. It's just like, I give up. Yeah. I don't know what to do with this guy. It's hard. It's hard. And I think it's especially hard for people who have their hands in a lot of things, that have a very broad experience, because, what happens when you're the consultant or professional that did this thing across multiple industries? Like, how are you going to share that? You have to figure that out. You have to find a core theme to weave.
Yeah, and I think it's, what do you want to be known for? Like, what's the thing that goes through each of those, different pieces, and who are you as a person? And I think things like values do come up. So for me, my audience, of course, they know me about LinkedIn, but they also know I'm someone that's going to stand for my values. I will call out engagement pod behavior. I will not accept brand partnerships from tools that do automation or anything along those lines that break the user agreement. And I will call that out, and there are things that I have a lot of empathy. So that is who I am as a person. I genuinely care about the people that are out there, whether I know them or not. Like, I have a level of responsibility and care for what I put out there in my content. So I think about, how will this land with someone else, and not just putting it out there for the sake of it. And I lead with that. I have a big heart, and I lead with that, which is, I didn't always do that in the beginning. I kind of sounded more like the LinkedIn help desk. You could basically sounded like a robot on the LinkedIn help section, and I could recite it all to you. And I probably still could recite it all, but that's not how I want to come across. And so people know that I care. They know that I have these values, and they know that I stand up against things when I need to. And I'm not trying to be contrarian for the sake of it. I stand up against engagement pods because of the listener of this podcast today that wants to get started, that has been put off because it looks like everybody else is smashing it and they're scared that they won't. And, that's why I do that kind of stuff. Not so it's the Michelle J. Raymond show. Like, that is not what it's about. And so it's, it's an interesting way to be on the platform. We have to find a way to stand out just so that we're memorable. So you end up as we know, on the short list, which is just, and I tried this at Social Media Marketing World because there's a lot of research going out with the B2B Institute right now, but it's like, whenever we want to buy something in a business setting, like, someone will say, go and get 3 quotes, right? And it seems to be universal. 3 quotes is the magic number. You want to be on that 3 quotes list. Who are the 3 people that they're going to reach out to? Is it going to be your business? And the way that we do that, stay top of mind, be memorable, and be able to be recalled so that when someone needs your services, they can, in their brain, this is the point of content, go, oh, that topic is AJ. I can refer you to them, or I'm going to reach out to him, or, and think about it from that perspective. So how do you get on that short list so that people buy from you and you give yourself a good chance? Because there's some people out there not doing as good a job as you that are winning business every day just because they're top of mind.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great place to end. I also think that we're going to put that at the beginning of the conversation, because that answers the question of why even focus on content, because you want to be top of mind, right? The more you show up, the more people are going to think about you. And when the time is right, your name pops up. Like, that's really what people are trying to get to.
Yeah, and the only difference that I would add to that is that you're also trying to repel the wrong customers. And if I look at who I attracted back in the early days of my business, the wrong fit clients, it's awful. When you do content well and you learn how to, really speak to that right audience, you get the best clients in the world that are happy to pay the prices that you want to charge, and it's a pleasure to work with. And that is why we do this stuff, so that you don't end up with the leftovers and the rubbish. And because honestly, that is the worst thing that happens in the beginning, is attracting the wrong audience. And so content can really repel that wrong audience just as much as it can attract the right one.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. It's like the entrepreneur's trap. Everybody says, go be your own boss, you'll be free. Wait till you have customers.
Yeah, do not.
You're going to wish you had a boss telling you what to do.
If anyone asked me today, would I go back and do it again? I'm not sure that I would. Like, I love being my own boss. I've had a lot of things over the last 6 years that I've learned, and I have achieved things that I never imagined. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And there's definitely a lot of, just rock up 9 to 5 and get paid without even having to think about it. And everybody does all the jobs that you hate. Like, yeah, there's some question marks that I have around this, but hey, I wouldn't have it any other way now.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? And for the listeners, there is a middle ground too, right? You can be intentional and proactive about your career and still just have not just have a career, but like still have a career and be successful. It's not one or the other. I think what you don't want to do is go into either side of them thinking that it's going to be easier than the other one, because it's not.
Amen.
Both of them are going to have. Yeah.
I'll say big ditto from me on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody says, I go to my job and I hate having to do performance reviews. Yeah. Wait till you're the one that has to give the performance review. Right.
That's exactly why I don't have employees.
All right. Well, any final words before we sign off for today?
Look, I think the most important thing that I would say is that first post is always going to be the hardest. So as a warm-up, maybe go and comment on somebody else's post. Get used to being active out on the platform and seeing that, especially on LinkedIn, it's not that scary. We have very few genuine trolls on the platform just because everything's tied back to your work experience. And so that is one of my favorite things that I love about LinkedIn. It is a safe platform. Start with the comments and work your way up, but I promise you the worst one will be the hardest, and it will just get easier from there. So, I wish everyone every success. If they need some help, they know where to find me.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on episode 1, and looking forward to hearing more from you later.
Amazing. They say you never forget your first, so here I am.
Yeah, here we are. Thanks, and thanks to everybody listening.